So as you all know, there are a lot of reviews I do that are completely outside of the norm of usual opinions on movies. This is going to be one of those reviews where I'm pretty much right there with just about everything that everyone has been saying about this one. So this may not be the most original review that I've ever done, but I really honestly did have pretty much the exact same reaction that everybody else did to this. And I probably don't have very much to say that just about everybody else hasn't already said. So I also kind of want to do something that I did with the Blu-ray version of Star Wars, where I also kind of want to investigate why this happened in the first place, and see if we can come up with a solution to prevent something like this from happening again, because I think Pixar is probably going to think twice before doing something like this again. This is the least critically acclaimed film that they've done, even by sequel standards. And as I was saying to a friend a couple of days ago, this, I think, is probably going to dispel the myth that every single idea that John Lasseter has is a good one, and that everything he's going to touch, no matter what kind of an idea he has, is going to turn to gold. Because this, at best, I think, probably turned to bronze or maybe rust. The good people at Pixar have said numerous times that they are not interested in ever doing sequels unless they have a really good idea for one, which is why they have gone the opposite way of Disney, which just cranks out sequels like it's no tomorrow and they're all crap. The Pixar sequels, by and large, have been very good for as few as they've had. If I'm being perfectly honest, I didn't like Toy Story 2 very much at all, but I thought there was a lot of really good stuff in there. And Toy Story 3, like I said in a few other reviews, I think is the best film that Pixar has made so far, sequel or not. But you really could tell with both of those movies that somebody really did have an idea and they had a story that they wanted to tell. It wasn't just for the purposes of making money or creating a franchise to where they can crank out more movies and crank out more money. And I honestly don't think that that's what's happening here, and this is kind of raising an alarm for a lot of people who are, they seem to be panicking and saying, well, this is just the first step towards Pixar going the way of Disney and just making films to make money. I don't think that's why this movie came about. I think that John Lasseter honestly thought that this was a good idea for a movie, and I think that this is John Lasseter's biggest mistake so far in Pixar. I don't think that this was as good an idea as he thought it was, and I think that that's proving to be true in the returns and in this movie's reception. As I said, I had a lot of the same problems as everybody did, but I'm going to start with my biggest one. This movie is sexual harassment Panda. And by that I mean the whole joke behind sexual harassment Panda is that, if you think of the two most incompatible things that don't really go together at all, sexual harassment and Panda, that's it. It's one of my favorite South Park jokes. This is akin to that joke. With regard to the first Cars movie, it wasn't Pixar's best, it wasn't Pixar's worst, it was just fine. But as far as the coherence of that movie goes, I understand what NASCAR has to do with cars, and I understand what Route 66 has to do with cars, and I understand what a little town called Radiator Springs that everyone is bypassing on a new interstate has to do with cars. I don't understand what secret agents have to do with cars. And my mind immediately went to Doug Walker's kind of semi-review when he did the top 10 films that he hates that everybody else seems to love. And he said of the first Cars movie that you could do this with anything. And that is instantly what I thought when they started doing the spy movie thing, is that you could do that with anything. It could be Cars or it could be anything else. It was a complete waste of this concept because they could have pushed that car idea more and more and had it have something to do with Cars the way the first movie did, except maybe bigger or different or somewhere else. They're taking the spy route, and again, it could have been anything. It could have been spies, or it could have been coal miners, or it could have been, they could have done car astronauts, or they could have done car, deep sea divers. It's completely unrelated to the core car concept. And I don't understand why that decision was made. But then again, maybe I do. I think that, once again, this was John Lasseter saying, I want to do a spy movie. and I don't think that was a good idea, and I think it was proving to be very bad. The second problem I have with this movie is I think probably everybody's number one problem that they had with this movie, which is that the character Mater is so much in the forefront of this movie, and he doesn't need to be, and he doesn't belong there. Mater has always been, well, I say always as if there's been more than one movie. In the first Cars movie, he was so perfect as a supporting character. Because this is one of those characters who can be very funny and charming in small doses, but when you get him as much as you get him in this movie, it really starts to be kind of grating after a while. At least it was for me. Interestingly enough, this is actually akin to one of my biggest problems with Toy Story 2, which was that was entirely Woody's movie, and I felt that all the other characters were kind of just thrown on the back burner, and they gave him the whole movie. But at the very least, Woody is a main character. He's one of two of the primary characters in that series. That's not the case with Mater. They could have done anything they wanted with the Lightning McQueen character and his relationship, or they could have actually focused this a little bit more on Radiator Springs, which we see for all of about 2 minutes, and then they go somewhere else. Doc Hudson, the man who voiced him, passed away sadly, and they gave a few mentions to what happened to his character. I think they probably would have been better off just saying, Doc is gone, so here comes a new character, and he's going to be our new Doc Hudson, and the town has to get used to him, and maybe Lightning McQueen has to teach him how to love the town the way he was taught how to love the town. It's actually pretty much of a no-brainer when you think about it, that there was a perfectly good plot sitting right there that could have extended what they were doing in the first Cars movie, but instead they throw this to any number of places. I think they end up in London at one point, and then they end up in Japan, and just all over the damn place. And the film never really seems to be centralized on anything but this generic spy plot that wasn't very interesting to begin with, and once again has nothing to do with cars. But again, too much of a focus on Mater, not enough of a focus on anybody else in the movie who were the primary characters to begin with. The final problem that I have with this is that this is the least challenging Pixar movie that they've ever done. And I think as a result, if you're including all of the sequels, this is probably the worst Pixar movie that they've ever done. And once again, I don't just want to jump on the bandwagon because I know a lot of people are giving it that label in the first place. But I really think it's true. If you just based on quality, not just in terms of enjoyment, because to be perfectly honest, and I understand this is just me and I'm fine with that, I did enjoy this movie more than I enjoyed Up, but I think Up was a better movie, just in terms of the writers actually trying to do something that has substance. I think that Up succeeded far, far more than this. It's like they weren't even trying. It's like they were going back to the drawing board, and once again, as I've talked about in so many other reviews, just doing a kids movie, and just doing something that you can plunk the kids down in front of and have them be entertained for a little while. That's not what I would expect from a Pixar film, and this is, as far as the Pixar writing quality standard goes, this is miles away from what they've been doing. So what I think is really happening here is, once again, I think this is a case of John Lasseter having an idea that he wanted to do very, very badly, and it was kind of like watching John Lasseter play with toys and kind of play out a semi-car fan fiction that I'm sure he liked a lot. But this is the first time that it really feels like he wasn't thinking about whether or not anybody else was going to want to watch something like this. He just wanted to do it. It may seem a little unfair to lay all of the burden on Lasseter specifically, because he was actually one of 3 story writers and he didn't even write the actual screenplay. But I think this project was very clearly and evidently spearheaded by him. And I mean, he's also the chief creative officer of 2 studios. I mean, this is his job. Part of his job is quality control. And that was completely absent here. So I don't think it's terribly unfair of me to lay the majority of the blame for this on him. And I think he needs to seriously think about what he's doing from now on, because I don't know if it's just that he's spread himself so thin over two companies that he doesn't really know what he's doing anymore. I hope that's not the case, because this man, he is an incredible talent. He's very imaginative, very inventive, and just about everything he's done. I mean, it's no coincidence that the second he became the chief creative officer of Disney, their movies started getting better. And Pixar has been pretty much outstanding since its inception. This is the first sign that I've seen that he's kind of starting to veer. And it's not terrible yet. This is really the first mild blemish that I think that Pixar has really had. It's not going to take much to get him back on track, but I think that this is really going to be the test case for whether or not they're going to entrust Lasseter with any decision that he wants to make. So there are the basics of the negatives for this review. I was underwhelmed. I thought it was uninspired. I thought it was fairly boring. Not enough focuses on all the right things. It's not the movie that it could have been, even for the standards of the kind of movie that Cars was. Positives, it was kind of cute. Occasionally it was entertaining. It looked phenomenal. But there's really not much else to say about that. So I'm really looking forward to the next Pixar installment, and I think that they're going to distance themselves from these kinds of films from now on. Probably going to think twice before doing another film like this. In all honesty, it really made me want to go and watch Toy Story 3, which is a phenomenal sequel. And if they ever do a sequel again, I hope they stick to that principle that they're only going to do sequels if they have a good idea for it. And that stuck in the back of my mind as I was watching this. You bothered to do a sequel for this? Really? I don't know. I feel like I'm just repeating myself at this point. So that's how I felt about Cars 2. Pretty much how everybody else did. And, I don't know. Hopefully they'll do better next time.